Hey, my name is Caleb Monroe. I'm 25 years old and just a few months ago, I moved from a small town in Montana to the city. It's the biggest change I've ever made in my life. And to be honest, I still wake up some mornings, not believing I actually did it. I grew up in a place where there were more cows than people. Dirt roads, fields, the sound of crickets at night. My whole childhood was quiet and simple. My parents, well, I never really had them. My dad left before I was born. And my mom, she didn't handle that well. She started drinking and by the time I was 10, she was gone, liver failure. They said, but really? It was heartbreak in a bottle that took her. After that, it was just me and my grandparents. Marilyn and Dwight, they were everything. My grandma taught me how to cook, how to pray, how to listen to people with my whole heart. And Grandpa, he taught me how to work. Really work, fixing fences, cleaning tools, showing up early and leaving late. School was my escape. I studied hard. Not because I love books, but because I knew it was my only way out. I didn't want to end up stuck in a place where dreams died quietly. When I got accepted into a small college, on a scholarship, my grandparents were the proudest people alive. And when I graduated, I landed a shot at an internship with a major tech firm in the city. I still remember packing that one duffel bag, hugging my grandma while she cried, and watching my grandpa slip a crumpled $100 bill in my pocket just in case I promised I'd make it. I told them I wouldn't waste a shot, and I didn't. The first few weeks in the city were overwhelming, loud, fast, different, but I showed up early, stayed late, kept my mouth shut, and learned. That's when I met her, Renee Harper. She was 32, sharp as hell, and had this a way of making people feel like they belonged. On my second day, she saw me struggling with a report system I'd never used before, and without asking, she pulled a chair next to mine and said, "You look like someone who doesn't like asking for help." I smiled awkwardly and nodded. She laughed and added, "Well, lucky for you, I like helping." From that moment, Renee became my unofficial mentor. She didn't just teach me technical things. She showed me how the office really worked, who to trust, what meetings mattered, which clients were difficult. She saved me from 100 tiny mistakes I didn't even know I was about to make. But she never made me feel dumb. She made me feel seen. I started looking forward to lunches with her, those short walks to the cafe around the corner, or the quiet chats by the coffee machine before the rest of the team arrived. She'd tell me stories about her early days in the company, how she used to doubt herself, how she learned to speak up, to own her space. I listened to everything she said. Not just because I wanted to be better at my job, but because her voice felt like something solid. In the chaos of my new life, one Friday I stayed late finishing up a proposal. Most people had already left. Renee was still in her office, the glass walls glowing soft under the dim ceiling lights. On her way out, she stopped by my desk and said, "You've got that look like you haven't breathed all day. Come on, walk with me a bit." We went down to the little courtyard. Behind the building, it was quiet. A few benches, some trees, the kind of place that felt far away from the office, even though it was just steps away. We sat on a bench, and for the first time in a while, I talked more than I listened. I told her about home, about Marilyn's lemon pie and Dwight's stubborn pride, about how scared I was the first week here, how I ate tuna out of a can, because I didn't know what to buy at the grocery store. She laughed softly, then turned serious. "You've got heart, Caleb. Real heart, it's rare." I didn't know what to say. No one ever said things like that to me before. That night as we walked back in silence, I noticed the way she looked at me, warm but guarded, like there was something she was thinking, but wouldn't say. I didn't press. I respected her. She was married. I knew that she never talked much about him. But I'd seen the ring on her hand. Still, something was happening. I could feel it, and I had no idea what it was going to turn into. The next few weeks moved fast. I was no longer the new guy fumbling around. I started to get a rhythm, understood the company culture, finished tasks quicker, and even got a few nods from senior staff. But through it all, the one constant was Renee. She always checked in, always found time for a 5-minute chat. Even when her day was slammed, I tried not to overthink it. But truth be told, I enjoyed our conversations more than anything else about the job. She made me laugh without trying. She challenged my thinking. She noticed little things, like when I started using a new notebook or stopped drinking coffee for a week. No one had really paid that much attention to me before. Not in that way. There wasn't anything physical between us. Not even close, but it was clear. We crossed into something more than just colleague territory. You don't check your phone at midnight, hoping for a message from your mentor, unless something shifted and something had. One afternoon we ended up in the break room alone. Most of the team was out at a networking event. We stayed back to finish a deadline. It had been a long day, and Renee suggested we step outside for some air. We went out to that same courtyard behind the building. It was late spring, cool breeze, trees just starting to fill in again. We sat on the same bench. I leaned back. Trying to decompress, Renee was quiet. Her hands folded in her lap, eyes on the brick wall in front of us. After a moment she spoke. Do you ever think about timing? She asked, like, how different life would be if you'd met certain people at a different point? I nodded, yeah. All the time. She looked down. Then glanced over at me, Bart Sherman. Hey Sherman. Hi me. Her left hand was resting on her lap, but I noticed her right hand, suddenly covering her wedding ring. And then she said it, I wish we'd met sooner. It wasn't flirty, it wasn't seductive. It was sad, honest, like something that had been building for weeks, finally cracked. I didn't know what to say at first. 100 thoughts ran through my mind. My heart sped up, but I kept my voice calm. Renee, you're married, I said quietly. She looked at me, nodded slowly. I know. I took a breath. You've been nothing but a good to me. Kind, supportive, and I'm really grateful for you, but I come from a broken home. I watched my mom fall apart after my dad left. I saw what that kind of pain does to someone. I'd never be the reason that someone's family falls apart. She didn't get defensive. She didn't try to justify anything. She just looked down at her hands. I'm not happy, Caleb, she whispered. I haven't been for years. It was the first time she'd ever said something that personal. She told me how her husband Darren used to be a good man, kind, ambitious. Her parents adored him. But once they got married and moved into their own home, everything changed. He quit his job. I started hanging out with old friends, disappeared for nights at a time. He barely spoke to her, barely acknowledged her. Money problems piled up, but he never looked for work seriously. She suspected infidelity but never had proof. Whenever she tried to talk about their future kids, finances, therapy, he'd either mock her or shut her down completely. She looked at me with tired eyes. I feel like I'm living next to a stranger, and I keep pretending it's fine because my parents, they really believed in us. I don't want to disappoint them. I didn't know what to say. My gut reaction was anger. Not at her, but at the situation. At this man who had someone like her and wasted it. I could see how much she was holding in. How long she'd been wearing a smile, just to get through her days. I said the only thing I could. I don't have all the answers, Renee, and I'm not going to pretend I know what you should do. But if you ever need someone who won't judge you, I'm here, whatever you decide. I'll respect it, she nodded. Thank you. We sat in silence after that. No drama, no emotional outburst. Just two people sitting quietly in the middle of the city, caught between what was and what could never really be. When we went back inside, things felt different. Not in a bad way, just real heavier. After that day, she didn't bring it up again. Neither did I, but something had shifted. We didn't cross a line that day, but we walked right up to it. The next few weeks were quiet, but not in the peaceful kind of way. More like the kind of quiet that sits in the corner of the room. Heavy and unspoken. Renee and I still worked together. We still had coffee in the morning. Still passed notes during boring meetings. Still exchanged the occasional, sarcastic comment that made us both smirk. But it wasn't the same, not after what she said. I wish we'd met sooner. That sentence hung between us, like fog. She hadn't brought it up again, and I respected that. But I couldn't forget the look in her eyes when she said it, or how carefully she had tried to hide her ring. Something inside her had cracked that day. And even though I didn't say it out loud, something cracked in me too. I found myself thinking about her, on the train ride home, about how tired she looked some mornings. How she flinched whenever her phone buzzed. How she smiled at people but not with her eyes. It was like she was living in two different worlds. One where she functioned, and another where she just existed. Still, I kept my distance. I didn't want to be the guy who made her life more complicated. She didn't need that. She needed space, maybe clarity, and if staying on the edge of her life helped her breathe easier, I was willing to stay there. Then she stopped coming in. At first I didn't think much of it. People get sick, take time off. The first day she was out, I figured maybe she needed a break. The second day I texted her just to check in. No reply the third day. I called her after work straight to voicemail. By the fourth day, something fell off. Renee wasn't the type to ghost the office. She'd always been the person who apologized for sneezing during meetings. For her to go silent like this, it wasn't normal. I asked around discreetly. No one had heard from her. One of the senior staff said she'd put in for emergency leave, but that's all they knew later that day. I pulled aside Karen, one of the older admins who had worked at the company for years and knew everyone's business. I kept my voice casual. Hey, you wouldn't happen to know where Renee lives, would you? I just want to drop something off. Karen looked at me for a second, like she knew there was more to the question than I was letting on. Then she scribbled an address on a sticky note and handed it to me. Don't tell anyone I gave you that, she said. I nodded. Thank you. That night after work, I took the train to the address. It was a quiet neighborhood, older homes, front porches, trees lining the street. I walked up the steps of her house, with my heart beating louder than I wanted to admit. I didn't know what I was walking into. I just knew I needed to see her, to make sure she was okay. I rang the doorbell once, no answer. I was about to leave, when I heard movement around the side of the house. I followed the sound, and found her sitting on the back porch, knees pulled to her chest, wearing an oversized sweater and loose pants, her hair tied back messily. She was barefoot, her eyes were red. She looked up and froze. Caleb, she said, her voice cracked and soft. What are you doing here? I was worried, I said honestly. You weren't at work, you didn't answer my texts. She didn't move, just stared at me like she wasn't sure I was real. Karen gave me the address. I'm sorry, I didn't know what else to do. She blinked hard, then looked away. You shouldn't have come, I know, I said, but I did. There was a long silence, then she whispered. He hit me. My breath caught. Darren. She nodded slowly. Last night for the first time. It wasn't hard, just enough. I sat down on the porch beside her. It did not too close. Did you call someone? I called the police, she said. They took a report. He left before they arrived. I filed for divorce this morning. I looked at her, searching for signs of fear or regret. But all I saw was exhaustion. Have you told your parents? I asked. She shook her head. Not yet. I can't. They believed in him so much. They still think he's the man they met 6 years ago. I don't know how to tell them. He's not that person anymore. I didn't say anything right away. I let her sit in the silence. It felt like she needed that more than words. After a while, she leaned her head back against the railing and closed her eyes. I thought if I had just waited long enough, things would get better, but last night, I realized I was waiting for someone who didn't exist anymore. I'm sorry, I said quietly. She opened her eyes and looked at me. I'm not. There was something in her expression. Some mix of grief and relief, like she had just come up for air after being underwater for too long. I don't know what's going to happen next, she admitted. I'm scared. But I think I made the right choice. You did, I said. And you're not alone, she didn't reply. But she nodded slowly, like that truth was just starting to settle into her bones. We sat there for a long time. No plans, no promises. Just presence. Eventually, the sun dipped low and the air got colder. I stood up and said I'd be around if she needed anything. She didn't walk me to the front door. She just looked at me and said, thank you. I left her house that night, with more questions than answers. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel powerless. Something had changed. And maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something real. It was almost 2 weeks before Renee came back to work. In those 14 days we kept in touch. Not every hour, not every day, but enough to know she was still standing. She texted when she felt strong enough. I didn't push when she needed space. I gave it when she wanted a voice on the other end of the phone, at 9 p.m. just to talk about anything other than court papers or silence at home. I picked up. I'd never been through a divorce. I didn't know what it was supposed to look like, but I knew what pain looked like. I'd seen it in my mom when I was a kid. I'd seen it in my grandma after Grandpa had heart surgery and couldn't move for months. There was a look people had when they were trying to stay whole, but didn't know where all the pieces had scattered. Renee had that look, but she was getting stronger. When she came back, it wasn't like in the movies. No dramatic entrance, no triumphant return. She walked in on a rainy Wednesday in a navy blue blazer, hair tied neatly. Expression.com, she waved to the receptionist. nodded to a few people and sat at her desk, like she had the week before and the week before that. I didn't say anything right away. I just caught her eye across the floor, gave a small nod, and she smiled. Genuine if tired. Later that day, she messaged me dinner Friday. Something normal, I didn't overthink it. I just typed absolutely. We met at a quiet Italian place she used to go to with friends. Booth in the back, dim lights, real candles on the table. She ordered a glass of red wine. I stuck with iced tea. She looked more relaxed than I'd seen her in a long time. There were bags under her eyes, sure, but her shoulders weren't clenched like before. She actually laughed when I told her about one of our coworkers trying to reset a computer by smacking it on the side. For the first 20 minutes, we didn't talk about anything serious. It was movies, bad office coffee, how she'd forgotten how loud her neighborhood was, without Darren home, every night. Then somewhere between the second plate of pasta and a shared tiramisu, she paused and looked at me. I thought about asking you here a month ago, she said, but I didn't want to make things worse. You wouldn't have, I said. I wasn't ready, she admitted. I was confused, I was angry. And I felt so much guilt, like I had failed at everything. I leaned forward. You didn't fail, Renee. She looked down, took a breath, and looked at me again. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to hear him in the kitchen. My body flinches when my phone rings, like it's going to be him yelling about something. And I hate that, I hate that. Someone I loved made me this version of myself. She said it so quietly I had to focus to hear her. You're not that version, I said. Not anymore. We left the restaurant, walking slower than usual. Neither of us wanted the night to end. At her car, she paused, keys in her hand, and smiled. This was nice, she said. It was, I agreed. We should do it again, she nodded. Then hesitated. I'm not ready to date anyone. I don't even know who I am outside of that marriage yet. I get it, I said. There's no pressure. I just like spending time with you. And I meant it from that night on. We started spending more time together, but in a way that felt careful, respectful, honest. No labels, no expectations. She invited me to a small art exhibit on a Sunday afternoon. I helped her move an old bookcase out of her spare room when she was rearranging things. We had coffee some Saturday mornings. We walked around the park once in a while after work. She still had rough days, court hearings, paperwork, conversations with her parents, who were hurt and confused by the divorce. But even they, over time, started to come around, especially after Renee shared just enough truth for them to understand they didn't love it. But they didn't abandon her either. One evening, after a long day, I got a message from her. Want to help me test out my new couch? I'll provide snacks. I showed up with a bag of kettle corn and a 6-pack of root beer. We ended up watching old reruns of Frasier. I don't even like that show. But she laughed at the dumbest lines, and I couldn't help but smile. At one point, she fell asleep with her head resting on my shoulder. I didn't move. I just sat there, still grateful. Not because I had her, but because she trusted me enough to rest. It's been close to a year since I first walked through the doors of that office and met Renee. So much has changed. I still live in the same one-bedroom apartment. Still catch the same morning train. Still eat too many frozen burritos when I'm too tired to cook, but I'm not the same person. Neither is she. Renee and I never had a big dramatic moment. No sudden kiss in the rain. No tearful confession under dimmed office lights. Instead, what happened between us grew slowly. Quietly, it built itself in the pauses, in the shared silences, in the unspoken understanding that life had worn us down in different ways, but somehow we still found each other. After the night she fell asleep on my shoulder, things shifted, not fast. Not publicly, but they did. We started seeing each other more, and not just for coffee or walks, or helping her assemble shelves. It became intentional. She'd invite me over for dinner and cook something from a recipe she hadn't tried in years. I'd surprise her with breakfast sandwiches on Sundays. She started texting me just to say goodnight. I'd call her in the middle of the day if I knew she had a tough meeting. It was a rhythm, one we built together. And then one evening she handed me a small box when I showed up at her place after work. Nothing fancy, just a plain white box. I opened it, and inside was her wedding ring. I don't want to keep this anymore, she said. It's not who I am now. She wasn't emotional when she said it. Her voice didn't shake, her hands didn't tremble. She just looked sure, like she'd finally taken a last step away from a version of herself she no longer recognized. I nodded, and didn't ask what she wanted me to do with it. I didn't need to. That ring wasn't mine to carry or understand. I set the box down on her shelf without a word and walked into the kitchen to make tea. From that night on, she never wore it again and she never looked back. About a month later, she asked if I wanted to move in with her. It caught me off guard, not because I didn't want to, but because I never imagined I'd be someone a woman like her would want to build a life with. I asked if she was sure. I don't want to keep pretending like we're not already doing this. She said, "You're here 4 nights a week. You know where everything is. My parents ask about you now. You matter to me, Caleb. I don't want to tiptoe around that." So I moved in at first. It was surreal seeing my toothbrush next to hers, having a drawer with my socks in it, learning how she folded towels differently than I did, discovering how quiet she became when she read at night, and how she always left the porch light on, even if I told her I'd be late. We found a balance. We had our differences. Sometimes she needed more space than I thought, and I had to learn that love doesn't mean fixing everything. Sometimes it means listening and waiting, and sometimes it means just being steady when someone else can't be. Her parents eventually invited us to dinner. Her mom hugged me tightly and said thank you. Her dad didn't say much, but at the end of the night, he clapped a hand on my shoulder and asked what kind of oil I used in my car. It wasn't much, but it meant something. We're not married, not yet, anyway. And truthfully, that's fine by both of us. Renee told me once she doesn't want another wedding, just because it's what people expect. If we ever do it, it'll be because we both feel like celebrating, not proving something. We live in a modest townhouse on the edge of the city, now split rent. Split chores? We still go to that Italian place sometimes. Still drink root beer on the couch during old sitcoms. Some nights are quiet, others are messy. And some are filled with laughter that comes out of nowhere. But every night ends with her beside me. And that's enough, she once said. I wish we'd met sooner now. Sometimes when she's brushing her teeth and humming off key in the bathroom, or scrolling through her phone with her feet resting on my lap, I catch myself thinking the same thing. But truth is, I don't. We met when we were both finally ready to meet, not before, not after. Caleb and Renee's story teaches us the profound lesson that true connection often arrives when we least expect it, but its timing is perfect in its own way. Renee's courage to break free from a toxic marriage and rediscover herself with Caleb's unwavering support reminds us that healing begins with honesty, both with ourselves and those who see us for who we are. Their bond, built on quiet moments of trust and understanding, shows that love doesn't always demand grand gestures. Sometimes it's the steady presence through someone's darkest days that matters most. This story urges us to listen to our hearts, to walk away from what diminishes us, and to embrace relationships that help us grow into our truest selves. It's a call to cherish the people who make us feel safe, enough to rest, to laugh, to dream again. Caleb's respect for Renee's journey, never pushing but always being there, teaches us that real love is patient, rooted in mutual respect and shared silences. Life may bruise us, but it also offers second chances, if we're brave enough to take them. What touched you most about Caleb and Renee's journey? Have you ever found a connection that helped you rediscover yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your stories. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to join our community of heartfelt tales. Let's keep exploring life's beautiful lessons together.